Today's edition of Mac Voices is sponsored by Drobo, a family of safe, expandable, yet simple-to-use storage arrays. Drobos are designed to protect your important data forever. This holiday season, give someone a Drobo to keep all their files and memories safe forever. And by MacVoices Magazine, our free Flipboard magazine that brings you some of the best Mac, iPhone, and iPad productivity tips on the web. High in signal, low in noise, just like MacVoices, MacVoices Magazine includes information on how you can get more out of your Apple technology. Subscribe at macvoices.com/magazine or search for MacVoices Magazine on Flipboard. Welcome to Mac Voices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we're back with another Take Control author to update another Take Control book that is absolutely essential reading if you have this particular piece of Apple tech, and that is Apple TV, a Take Control crash course, and the author is Mr. Josh Centers. Josh, it's great to have you.
Thanks for having me back, Chuck.
So, Josh, we keep seeing these incremental upgrades to the Apple tech, and you all keep doing the incremental upgrades to the books to keep us current. What's new with this version of the Apple TV book?
So we have a few interesting things that we cover in the new book. One of the things is tvOS 10, which adds some new features that I'll get into here in a minute. The other big thing is the Apple TV Remote app. If you'll recall, when this new Apple TV was first released, you couldn't use the original Remote app with it at all. And Apple, as it took about a month or so, and they updated that app, but it kind of worked imperfectly. And so now they've come out with this Apple TV Remote app that perfectly emulates the Siri remote and actually adds a few new features. Also, I've added some summaries for a few apps that have been released since the last edition of the book, and including some cable TV replacements that have come out on the market, such as PlayStation Vue, DirecTV Now, and Sling TV.
Josh, I see a lot of people comment, and I get a little frustrated because they want Apple TV to be this one ring that rules them all. And I think it's a nice idea, and it would be wonderful if it could happen. But whether you're on Apple TV or any of the competitors or just on regular cable TV, there really isn't that kind of thing that takes care of Netflix and Amazon and all the cable TV channels, all the pay channels and all that. Everybody has they've boxed themselves off a little bit. Is it fair to come down on Apple TV the way that some people are as it being a disappointment, or is it just Apple's the implementation is not as good as it could be?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think part of it is very obviously Apple TV is not Apple's main focus. I'm not quite sure what Apple's main focus is at the moment, but it's definitely not Apple TV. And so it took them, I get the sense with this fourth generation Apple TV that they had some big ideas they wanted to pull off, but they needed the consent and the agreement of the content companies, and they couldn't get that, or possibly the cable companies. And so they kind of whipped this thing out last minute. It came out feeling very much like a rushed product. And it's since evolved quite a bit. And I would still argue that it's the best of its kind. When you compare it to, say, Android TV or Roku or even Fire TV, which Fire TV is pretty good, PlayStation, any of these things, and the Apple TV still blows them all away. There are some things that Apple could fix. They're in its control. Some things not entirely in its control, such as the lack of Amazon Prime Video. There's only so much Apple can do about that, if anything. That's really in Amazon's court. But overall, I would still say that Apple is doing a better job than anyone else when it comes to this space.
See, that's my take on it, and I'm glad to hear you agree with it without me having to try to take credit for it. I'll take credit after the fact, because you just said it so well. Amazon controls their content agreements, and as does Netflix, and as does CBS Interactive. And if they aren't willing to give Apple access to it, then Apple can't do things. So I may not be able to say, hey, do the magic words and, show me every episode of Star Trek that's available. And, okay, if it's on Amazon, it may not be able to show me that. And I just don't see that as Apple's failure. And frankly, I get a little touchy about it when people say, well, yeah, Apple's screwing up. there are things beyond their control.
Sure. I mean, some things are in their control, but most of the big frustrations right now with the Apple TV are, with content providers. I mean, maybe Apple could figure out some clever workarounds, but use any other TV platform. Use any of the other ones. Roku has all kinds of problems. Their software is back to the Stone Ages. If you use Android TV, my Sony TV has Android TV built into it, and it's pretty neat, but it has some super rough edges. For instance, there's no on-screen keyboard in Android TV. So if I go to search for something in YouTube, it tells me to do a voice search. My remote doesn't have a microphone in it. So I have to use one of the apps for the TV, but those often don't work right. Like I'll try to type something in the remote app, which is something the Apple TV does super well. And you try to do it in Android and you type one letter and it types like 4 of the same letter, or it doesn't show up, or something else weird happens. For some of the things I've had to do on my Android TV, if I didn't have a Nexus 7 tablet sitting around that I could charge up and connect to my Android TV, I wouldn't have been able to do it at all. So, use any of the other stuff, and Apple TV starts looking pretty good again.
Sorry, I got off on I guess a little bit of a rant there, but I feel like that so many of the discussions that surround any discussion of Apple TV center on the content and the fact that it doesn't behave the way that someone would like it to, and I think that's kind of missing the point because it is beyond Apple's control. So for the things that Apple controls, though, they make it pretty easy for you to access the content via the Siri remote. Or through a dedicated app, if that's the case. And I know that's not the best solution for a lot of people, but it's also a solution that the individual providers can control and therefore deliver the content the way they want to deliver it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one thing I will give Apple kudos for is the way they've centered or way they've aggregated content in the Apple TV is pretty great. The Siri search on the Apple TV is the best of any of these TV platforms I've used. One of the things, I believe this is with tvOS 10, you can now search for genres. You can search by topic. I'll just give you an example. One night I told Siri, show me some cyberpunk movies. And it showed, all these movies in that subgenre. And did a pretty good job of showing them. And so I flipped through and I saw Strange Days, which is a great movie from 1995. Catherine Bigelow directed it. Almost into her career, unfortunately, but it's a movie that's aged really well. It's aged a lot better. I think people appreciate it a lot more now than when it came out. Anyway, so I pull it up. It's like, oh, you can watch this for free in the Stars app. I'm like, okay, great. I don't know of any other platform, maybe Fire TV, that does that. The Android TV search is terrible if you can get it to work at all. Amazon hasn't integrated these things as quickly as they've said they're going to. Apple is integrating this stuff into Siri search really fast, so it's not trying to push you to buy stuff from iTunes. It's if you have a subscription to Stars or to Netflix or whatever, it tries to send you to that. And it tries to help you not waste your money. Paying for stuff you can already see with your subscriptions. So I don't know any other TV platform that does that. And, I have all these apps built in my Android TV. I have apps built in my PlayStation. Sometimes they're more convenient, but I find myself going back to the Apple TV a lot just for that search, just for that ability to search through stuff easily.
I have to admit, that's something that I don't do a lot of. From both sides. I don't subscribe to a lot of extra video services, and I very seldom sit down to a TV and say, show me cyberpunk movies or show me spy movies or whatever, because honestly, I just don't feel like I have the time. Usually if I sit down, I have something in mind that I want to watch right then. But do you think Siri and Apple TV does a better job of that kind of discovery across the board, regardless of the genre?
Yeah, well, if you know the specific movie you want to see, you can search for that as well with the Siri remote, and it'll pull right up. For instance, if you said, hey, I want to watch Civil War, the new Captain America movie, you might find, oh, that's a Netflix now. And you may not have expected it to be a Netflix because it's a brand new movie, but it is. And it hit Netflix, I don't know, I think on the 23rd. So with that search, you'd be able to find out, oh yeah, well I have this through my Netflix subscription. I think most people who have an Apple TV subscribe to Netflix. So that's another advantage of the Apple TV is if you want to see a specific movie and you search Siri for it, instead of digging through the apps, it'll show you everywhere it's available. That's also a nice thing about this new TV app, other than Netflix. I don't know why Netflix isn't included in this thing, but you can search for a movie. If you just see a movie you want to see in the TV app, it'll show you all the places other than Netflix. Actually, it will show you Netflix. If you open it up, it won't show you Netflix specific stuff, but if you happen to say open The Walking Dead, the TV show The Walking Dead, it'll show you, because it shows you the same listing as if you pulled it up in search. So if you want to watch that on Netflix, you can. So that's tvOS does this sort of integration better than anything I've seen. Maybe there's something else better out there, but I've tried them all, and tvOS does it better than anything I've seen.
So is Apple TV doing that with subscriptions? The fact that it knows that you have a subscription to Stars, and so therefore will present it. What if you didn't have a subscription to Stars? Would it say it's available on Stars, or would it just ignore it?
When you look at a listing, it just shows you what you have installed. So, like, let's say you have the Netflix. Okay, let's say you pull up Walking Dead. Walking Dead's a good example. It's on Netflix and iTunes. Let's say you open that up. You don't have the Netflix app installed, it'll just take you to iTunes. But if you do have the Netflix app installed, it will. Now, the TV app will, I think this is sort of a consolation to some of their partners. They will actually try to point you out to different apps. There's actually a tab that's mostly dedicated to streaming services. Like, it'll show you what's on Stars and what's on HBO and whatnot. Not on Netflix, because Netflix isn't participating with the TV app. So, but when you use the Siri search, when you pull up a show listing, it shows you the apps. It shows you options in the apps you have installed. So, if you have, like, say, HBO Now installed, but you haven't logged into it yet, it'll still show it to you because it recognizes the apps installed, and it'll show it. It'll be like, okay, you can open it in that app. You might just have to log in when you open that if it hasn't been logged into yet.
Today's edition of Mac Voices is sponsored by Drobo, a family of safe, expandable, yet simple-to-use storage arrays. Drobos are designed to protect your important data forever. This holiday season, give someone a Drobo to keep all their files and memories safe forever. Time is running short on our special holiday offer from Drobo, and I can't stress enough why you should take advantage of it. Until December 31st, visit drobostore.com and use the discount code MV20 to take 20% off the Drobo 5D, Drobo 5DT, Drobo 5N, and any 8-bay or 12-bay Drobo model. That's a savings of $100 to $800, depending on which model is right for you. Why Drobo over some of the other storage options? Simple. First, it's redundant. 1 or even 2 drives can go bad in your Drobo and your data is safe. Drives go bad no matter what storage system you're using, but with Drobo, your data is safe thanks to their Beyond RAID technology. Second, fixing an issue is as simple as swapping out the bad drive for a new one. No tools necessary. No complex or arcane keyboard commands. Drobo takes care of it all. Third is expandability. Upgrading your Drobo storage when you need more is as simple as swapping out a smaller drive and replacing it with a larger one. Again, no commands or utilities or waiting necessary. Everything happens automatically, thanks to Drobo. Don't put this off because this offer is only good until December 31st. drobostore.com and the code MV20 gets you 20% off the Drobo 5N, Drobo's network storage device, the Thunderbolt-connected Drobo 5D, the even faster Thunderbolt-connected Drobo 5DT, and any 8-bay or 12-bay Drobo. Make sure your important files, photos, and videos are safe by storing them on a Drobo. Make sure your storage can grow with your needs by making Drobo your storage device of choice. It just doesn't get any better or safer than Drobo. Thanks to Drobo for their ongoing support of Mac Voices. We're dancing around the TV app a little bit. That's one of the newest additions to tvOS and one of the most discussed, perhaps,
Hmm.
for some of the reasons we've already covered. What's your experience right now with the TV app and how it is integrating, and I guess where it is now versus where we all hope it would go?
Well, I'll just say it really needs Netflix. I'll just get that out of the way. But other than that, it's actually I like it a lot in terms of and see this is an example of you have to blame the content people and not Apple. Apple has set up a really nice front end. So if you're not familiar with the TV app is the TV OS, sort of what the watch face is on watch OS. It's sort of this new idea from Apple about having device specific home screens and not just like on the iPhone. On the iPhone, the home screen, after you get past the lock screen, is just a grid of app icons, and that works great on a touch screen. It doesn't work so great on a watch because the first thing when you flick up your watch, you want to see what time it is. You don't want to see a grid of app icons. Oh, there's the watch app. I'll see what time it is. Same thing with TV. When you turn on the TV, usually you want to watch a movie or TV show, right? You don't want to dig through a bunch of apps to figure out where that content is. And so this TV app is a bit of a paradigm shift for tvOS now, because when you first boot up, it'll take you to the old home screen, the grid. And then when you press the home button, which interestingly has the TV icon on it, which makes me think that Apple had been planning this app from the start and just, again, supports my theory that they wanted to work something out with content providers and just couldn't. But anyway, so now when you press that home button, it will take you to the TV app. A second press will take you back to the old home screen. But so in this TV app, you have four or five screens. The first, the main screen, though, the one that you're going to spend almost all your time in, is the Watch Now screen. And what it does is it has a list, your watch list in it, things you add to your watch list, or things you started watching and then cut off for some reason. You can resume from there, and it'll also suggest things to you, like TV shows, movies, etc. And if you open up a TV show or a movie, it'll give you different options, just like when you search for them in series. So if you pull up a movie, like let's say Captain America: Civil War, it'll be like, okay, you can buy or rent this in iTunes, you can watch it in Netflix, etc. So it's sort of a centralized hub for all your content, as long as that content isn't exclusive to Netflix, and so it's a really neat interface. I like it quite a bit. I do wish everyone participated. If Netflix and Amazon were both on there, it would be the ultimate solution for this sort of thing. Netflix, I think Apple will work something out with Netflix eventually. I mean, they've had a good relationship for a long time, so I don't see why they wouldn't. Amazon, Apple and Amazon don't like each other too much, so I wouldn't hold your breath on that. But it's a really nice app. It's a really nice front end for the Apple TV. And if you don't like the behavior of pressing the home button to go to the TV app, you can change that in settings. I explain how to do that in the book.
I've heard people talk about the fact that, okay, if I go over to my TV and turn it on, I've got content right away. And with the Apple TV, I still have to do 1-2 presses to get where I want to go. I always think that's a little disingenuous because, yes, I get content immediately on my TV, but unless I'm only ever going to watch one channel, or that my TV happened to be on the channel that I want, the next time I turn it on, then I'm probably going to still have to hit at least 1 or 2 more buttons to get to where I want to go. So it feels different, but I think if you start counting button presses, it's not that different.
No, I mean, if you have cable, you turn the TV on and you have to pull up a guide usually, and like you said, you just watch the one channel, or you have to browse through your DVR. And that's not always the best interface, is it? Or you got to go through the on-demand interface, which again isn't always the best. I mean, even back in the day, I grew up. I was probably 8 or 9 years old by the time we got our big redneck C-band satellite dish. So for a long time, we had. We just had an antenna, and that was in the good old days. You turned your TV on and you flipped the dial, and half the time it wouldn't come in, and you'd have to you would have to go jiggle the antenna, or as Married with Children once displayed it, the Fox viewing position, where everyone had to hold up some forks and some tin foil and little antennas and hold your head just right. Okay, now I can watch The Simpsons. Great, So I mean, there, that thought of the good old days. Unless you lived in a major metropolitan area, just never really existed, and even then you didn't have a lot of choice, did you? So, and I definitely see the complaint about having to know which app to dig through on the Apple TV or any of these other devices, and that's a real discoverability problem, because and that's really, I think, what people are complaining about. You turn your TV on, you turn your box on, and now it's a guessing game. Is what you want to watch on HBO? Is it on Netflix? Is it on Amazon? Which one is it on? It's kind of like that old Johnny Carson bit with a turban, and you try to guess what's in the envelope. So TV tries to, Siri up to a point helps solve that, and then the TV app also helps solve that. So that's a problem. That's a real problem with streaming services that I think Apple is trying to solve. And I think they're trying to solve it better than everyone else. Though I think Amazon gets a special mention. They did start tackling this problem first on the Fire TV. They did offer the option to open content in different apps beforehand. But of course, the Fire TV is very central to Amazon's offerings. They want you to watch stuff from Prime. They want you to subscribe to Prime. Actually, my son twice subscribed us to Prime by accident, even though we didn't want it, because they made it just that easy. And, it's kind of a honeypot. The Fire TV is sort of a honeypot. They really want you to buy stuff from Amazon, and that's what the Fire TV is geared toward, with everything else as a secondary consideration. Of course, now they sell different subscriptions through Amazon, like Showtime and HBO and so forth. So, they want you to, you can subscribe to that stuff through us, and, but I think Amazon has a pretty good solution, but Apple, I think, has a more, for lack of a better word, altruistic solution. Apple isn't specifically trying to sell you on the iTunes ecosystem. They're not specifically trying to sell you on any certain thing. They want you to have a good experience using their technology. And I feel like that's the difference. Amazon really wants you to give them the $100 a year for Prime. They really want you to buy your movies through Amazon. Apple, of course, wants you to buy stuff through iTunes. You don't really have any other choices if you want to buy or rent, but they do give you a lot of choices if you just want to subscribe to, say, Netflix or Starz or HBO or whatnot, and get your stuff through there.
A couple things that you mentioned there, and I think it's really interesting, the changes that have occurred. In the old days, as you say, you turned the TV on and you had to do all the adjustments you were talking about, but you also had to guess as to what time your favorite program was on. And the networks, I often thought, did a great injustice to everyone, including the producers of the shows, by saying, well, we're preempting this and we're shifting it over here, and it's on at a special night. And if I wasn't paying attention, I missed the special night. Now we have all this stuff that we can, if I want to sit down and start watching something at 7:37, fine. I can watch it from the beginning. But now I have to figure out where it is to go to get it. So we need a TV that's psychic. I mean, that's
sure.
That's the first thing. But it's also fascinating to watch. I mean, I don't think anyone would argue. Amazon's agenda is, you're right, to get you to buy stuff through any channel they can. Google's motivation seems to be to get you to use all their services so they can advertise to you to make money that way. Apple's, I'm sure they're not completely altruistic, but it does feel like it's a bit more about the experience of consuming the content as opposed to shoving stuff at you and constantly trying to sell it to you or find out what you like so they can throw advertising at you. And that's a big difference.
Right. Well, it comes back to business model. Amazon's business is getting you to buy things. And Google's business is knowing everything about you so they can target ads specifically to you and charge a premium for that. And Apple's business is selling you boxes. They want you to buy their hardware. And of course, all three companies do all three things to one degree or another, but it really comes down to what the core business is, and you can see that reflected in their behavior. And Apple's main thing is they really want you to buy an Apple TV, and they want you to keep buying Apple TVs, and they want you to also buy an iPhone and an iPad and an Apple Watch and a Mac. Especially want you to buy the iPhone, right? And so everything's directed toward that. And one of the things with this TV app, it also replaces the old Videos app in iOS. I don't really touch on this much in the book, but it's worth noting. So if you add something to your watch list on the Apple TV, that will show up in the iOS app. Another thing I want to mention about the TV app is that you can access your iTunes movies and TV shows from the TV app. Now, the movies and TV show apps remain on the Apple TV. The TV app does not entirely replace them, as the interfaces are slightly different. But it's something to know. So now, so if you're on iOS and you're wondering what happened to your Videos app, you want to know how to watch your iTunes videos, the ones you've bought and purchased and rented through iTunes, you now do that through the TV app in iOS 10.2. So, and it's a big improvement over the old Videos app, and it's more or less identical to what you have on the Apple TV.
And once again, it feels like Apple's taking away that friction. They want you to be able to move from one device to the other seamlessly, and that, at least for my money, is a better experience. So that if I can't quite finish what I'm watching on the big screen, I can watch it maybe at lunch on my iPad or even on my iPhone, and without having to figure, okay, let's see, how many more minutes did I have left? And I got to download it and get to that right spot. Just hit it and go.
Right. It's great. And, one of the things I love about the watch list is that it keeps track of which episodes you've watched. And the TV app also works with Hulu. And honestly, I think Hulu is starting to become a better service in some ways than Netflix is. They've improved a lot very recently. They have a great movie selection. They have a great TV selection and a lot of recent episodes. And so a couple of shows we follow, we can add them to our watch list, and it picks up, oh yeah, last one you watched was episode 5. And so when you go to that show in your watch list, it takes you to the episode you're on to next. So it makes keeping track of different shows very easy to do.
I haven't used Hulu in a long time. Do they still kind of cut up the old TV shows or the older TV shows in such an obnoxious way where it's just, okay, it's 17 minutes and 53 seconds in, and so now it's time for an ad no matter what's happening on the screen? Or have they started to respect more the way things were cut?
Well, the ads are still awful, but you can pay a little bit more per month and get it without ads. And actually what we do, we have some friends who have Hulu Plus without the ads, and we have HBO, and we just trade logins. So we just share the logins. So we both get the same things. And Hulu without the ads is a lot better. Hulu still has some problems. The interface still kind of sucks. Like sometimes you can dig through and you'll find, oh, this is a TV show I want to watch. Oh, Hulu has it. And then you start watching and realize it's just like a preview, or it's like a trailer or something. And you're just wondering why do you have a listing for this? Why are you wasting my time? And see, this is one of the nice things about the TV app. If you have an app like Hulu where the interface is god awful, then the TV app kind of smooths that over, and because it just shows you, it uses the iTunes database and just shows you content, and then it shows you where you can watch it at, and it just opens up in that app. So that's a nice thing. And so if you do have an Apple TV and you've got this TV app, it may be worth looking at Hulu again. Get the ad-free version, because the ads have always been beyond obnoxious. And and you have a lot of choices for movies and recent TV shows and even older TV shows. I can't believe I'm recommending Hulu now, but there you have it. That's how much things have changed.
Well, that's another interesting part of this discussion. Netflix for a while was the 800-pound gorilla, and iTunes was another 800-pound gorilla. And now Amazon is coming on strong. They're doing their own things, original productions, as is Netflix. So everybody's trying to give you different reasons to subscribe to their services. And I think it definitely adds to a much more varied available content set for the viewer. But it also means a lot more subscription dollars if you want all that content.
Right. Well, I think it's nice that we're entering an age of more choice. Now, for instance, say you like to watch football, you don't have to, NFL football specifically, you don't have to pay Comcast X amount per month if you don't want to. You can use a service like I'm a big fan of PlayStation View. I think it's the best one out of the three big ones on the Apple TV, and you can get like NFL Red Zone through that. And of course, some people don't like Red Zone, but for if you want a football fix and don't want a cable subscription, it's a pretty good solution. And they also have ESPN and NFL Network on there, so you can watch those Monday and Thursday night games. Although some of the Thursday night games you have to watch the Twitter app. Long story, but you have those options. You have those options you didn't have before. The big holdouts on stuff are the broadcast channels, CBS in particular, because CBS wants you to pay them, I think, $8 a month for CBS All Access, which really should be called CBS Some Access, because they only show you some of the stuff they have. Although apparently they are working on getting NFL games. You can watch college football through CBS All Access or CBS Some Access, but not NFL games currently. And you can't watch Person of Interest for some reason through the CBS app, but they have that on Netflix. So this is how much I track all this stuff and how complicated it is to figure out all the rights stuff. But if you subscribe to a service like PlayStation View or Sling TV, or I think even with DirecTV Now, you get all the on-demand content from the broadcast networks, which you could also, of course, get through Hulu. It's mostly the live content that's in contention. Like, for instance, Sling TV doesn't really offer live broadcast channels anywhere. PlayStation View, kind of their mission starting out was to only offer that, but they eventually had to branch out because negotiating with every single station in the country is sort of difficult. So, but they do offer all the on-demand stuff. And this is why when I reviewed PlayStation View for Tidbits recently, I focused mostly on news and sports, because those are the two things. Those are the only two things you really care about watching live, right? Like, you can watch, your other shows more or less any time, unless you have like a Game of Thrones party or something. But, by and large, it's sports and news, are the main things you want to focus on there. So, when I look at these, I look at the sports news packages, obviously. And out of those three services, I don't even know how we got on this topic, but I'm just going to say, out of the three cord cutter services, of which you have Sling TV, PlayStation View, and DirecTV Now, I'd say PlayStation View easily beats all of those. And if you look at my review on tidbits.com, I explain why. Basically, it has a better news package and better sports package than either of them. And also DirecTV, for some reason, their web interface relies on Silverlight, which Microsoft hasn't even supported in like 3 years, which doesn't give me a lot of confidence about it. So
yeah, really.
That's it's pretty bizarre. So I don't know how we got on that topic. I think I was just kind of rambling there. But if you are looking for a cord cutter service, you're looking for an alternative to Comcast, I think PlayStation View is the best out of those three options. Although Sling is quite nice too. They're all pretty good. I
know exactly how we got here, because the discussion of availability of content has become so fragmented. And so you just told me something I didn't know about with the NFL football games. And I didn't know about the Thursday night games on Twitter. In fact, I've watched a couple of those, and it's a really interesting experience. It's like Twitter, but yeah, I mean, yeah. There they are. It's such an amazing moving target. I want to watch football. I want to watch hockey. I want to watch golf. I want to watch baseball. What are my options to do it, and what are the best ones, or at least what are the trade-offs for each one, as opposed to just, plopping down in front of Comcast or your cable service and taking what they feed you. If you really want it, how do you go about it?
It's really the challenge. It's still the one place where the cable companies kind of have you over a barrel, right? If you want to watch sports in particular, that's kind of difficult. Though I do, in the last chapter of the Apple TV book, I discuss a number of different apps and a number of different options. So you do have some options for sports, although it's kind of complicated. So if you if you want to watch the NBA, you can subscribe to NBA TV, and you can watch your favorite team or whatever for a flat rate per year up into the playoffs. The playoffs, you would have to jump to a service like PlayStation View, and then of course the NBA Finals, as far as I can remember, have always been ABC. So you'd have to come up with something different to watch those in ABC. So you find yourself jumping around a lot, and and honestly, if you're a sports fan, it's probably still the easiest just to either, if you don't have an antenna, just to go with a cable or a satellite subscription. But I think that's something that's going to get a lot better in just a year or two. I mean, if you'd asked me a couple of years ago, about a service like Sling TV or PlayStation Now or DirecTV Now, I would have probably laughed at you. In fact, there may be an old episode of MacVoices where I do that, because such a thing didn't seem possible in the business climate. So we've seen a lot of advancement in the past couple of years. I mean, I've watched PlayStation View grow from a kind of a niche service earlier this year into a full-fledged thing now. When it first came out, you had to be in a specific city and you had to have a PlayStation game console and all this and that. And now they have Apple TV apps, they have web browser apps. Anyone in the US can subscribe to it. So this sort of stuff's advanced really quickly, and it's continuing to advance really quickly. So it's going to be interesting to watch over the next year or two, how much this stuff evolves.
Yeah. We've kind of done a broad brush stroke here across everything, but I think it's important to keep the perspective on the whole landscape and how Apple TV fits into it. And I'm with you. I still think it's the best. There may be a couple quirks to it. It may not be exactly what we want yet, but I think we're moving in that direction. And so, folks, that's why you need to get Josh's book to keep up with some of this stuff and find out what your best options are now. And as I said before, Josh, you keep updating it as things change. We really appreciate that because it means that we can stay updated.
Well, hey, I'm thankful that Apple's putting enough into it that's worth updating it. I think this is the second update I've done it this year. So, as much criticism as the Apple TV has gotten, it's advancing pretty fast too. Now, if we could just get a 4K box, we'd be good to go.
I wasn't going to bring that up, but I was, since you brought it up, how important is 4K at this point? Do you think, given what the content that's being delivered to us, is it really a huge detriment that Apple hasn't brought out a 4K box?
Well, I'll frame it like this. So, although I do think the Apple TV is the best experience, you're still looking at it's like a $150 box thereabouts, and it's by far the most expensive. It's the only one in that class, actually it's in a class of its own in terms of expense, without 4K. The Fire TV is 4K, and it's around $100. Roku has a 4K box for around $100. The new 4K Chromecast, there's a Google Cast now. I can't keep track. I think they went back to Chromecast, but anyway, it's about $70. So for $150, yeah, they better have 4K. That's my thought on it. If you spend the money on a good 4K TV, yeah, you want that difference. Part of the reason I will watch stuff on Netflix over the Apple TV is for 4K, because all of the Netflix originals are 4K and I think 60 frames a second. And I've had two TVs in the past 2 years. I had a Vizio that my kid broke, which actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because I have a Sony now that looks way better and actually can, and it has 4K and HDR, although you can't have HDR over HDMI for some reason. It has to be in the built-in apps. Don't ask me why. And so watching, say, like the Grand Tour on Amazon in 4K with HDR is just an amazing experience. It's such a good-looking show. And, Amazon spent like $250 million on a car show, and you can really tell when you watch it. You watch it on a really good 4K HDR TV. It's something else entirely. So yeah, I think for the money Apple's asking for the Apple TV, just on principle, they should be offering 4K HDR and all that stuff. Because if you're the kind of person who's going to spend top dollar on the best TV box. So you probably also want to spend top dollar on the best TV. I'm sure not everyone's falls in that camp. I'm sure, but I would imagine there's a lot of overlap there. So and and that's really the thing. Apple wants to have the best product. The best product should have 4K, HDR, and all that sort of stuff.
And I'll just give the other side of it, because I agree with Josh 100%. For the 4K content that is delivered in 4K, absolutely. Then it is the Apple TV's at a disadvantage. But if I've got a car that goes 100 miles an hour and the speed limit, or 150 miles an hour and the speed limit is 70, it's not doing me any good. And so that's what, I guess, depending on what you watch and how you watch it, it may or may not be a big deal. I got to believe the next iteration definitely will have 4K. But I don't think it suffers right now. I wouldn't tell someone, oh, you better wait for the next Apple TV to come out. I'd say go and get it now, start enjoying the experience, then decide if you want to do the upgrade and either sell it or move that Apple TV to the bedroom.
Yeah, I don't think Apple's probably right. Most people can't tell the difference. I go to people's houses all the time and they have the resolution set wrong, or they have the motion blurring turned on super high so everything looks like a Spanish soap opera. And, so it probably doesn't matter whether it's 720p or it's 4K. Most people probably can't tell the difference. But I can tell the difference. I bought a nice Sony TV. I want to see the difference, And yeah, maybe it's a nerdy thing. One of my big frustrations now is that the Google Play Store is now getting 4K content. iTunes still doesn't. So that is kind of annoying. I expected Apple to be, on top of the game on this. And so now I'm having to ask myself, if I want to watch this movie in 4K, if it's available in 4K, I have to get it from Google, which is bad because the app crashes all the time. It's terrible. But if I want to watch the full 4K, now I have to go to Google to get it. Thankfully, they have the Disney Movies Anywhere thing, which I think I touch on in the book. It's really cool. If you get a Disney movie made by Disney, like say the Avengers or Force Awakens, or I don't know, like Aladdin or something. You buy it through like iTunes. You register with Disney Movies Anywhere, and then you can watch it also through Amazon or Vudu or whatever Microsoft's thing is, or Google. And so that's pretty awesome. If you're like me and you switch between these platforms a lot, you can buy a movie on one platform and watch on all of them, but only the Disney movies, unfortunately.
Yeah. Joshua, again, we've been all over the place, but this has been a great discussion, and maybe hopefully it broadened people's perspectives a little bit, not just focused on that little box on top of their TV that is the Apple TV, but the whole experience, because that's what it's supposed to be about, is the experience of watching whatever your favorite content is. The book is Apple TV, A Take Control Crash Course.
No, it is Take Control of Apple TV.
It is a Take Control. I can't keep up with you guys. Okay, this is Take Control of Apple TV. It's at takecontrolbooks.com, and this particular revision is free if you already own it.
If you own, 2.0, it's free. I think I'm not sure what the upgrade fee from 1.0 is. I think they raised it. I'm not sure about that. But if you have an upgrade at this point, I don't know what you're waiting for. But yeah, if you have 2.0, it is a totally free update, adds quite a bit of content. Let me go through a list of things because I feel like I've missed stuff. So some of the new stuff in tvOS 10, there are some new Siri commands. It can now control your lights if you have HomeKit accessories and such. There's a new dark mode, which is nice to keep from going blind, which I highly recommend. Economically download apps. So if you buy an app on your iPhone, it can show up in your Apple TV and vice versa. There's a new single sign-on feature, which is great in theory. So, a lot of apps need a cable authentication. So this makes it so you just have to do that authentication once and it's done. The only problem is it only supports like Dish Network and DirecTV and like Honolulu Telecom. So it doesn't have Comcast yet. No Cox cable, no Charter cable. So for most people, it basically shouldn't exist. Might as well not exist. The music app has been refreshed. It has that new theme from iOS 10, so it looks pretty cool. The Photos app has memories, and you can also now there can be games that require a game controller. So, for instance, the new Minecraft game for the Apple TV requires an actual game controller. You can't play it with a Siri remote. So that's some of the big changes in this edition of the book.
Frankly, that's more than I realized. So there's a lot of stuff there. Good.
It adds up.
Yeah. Well, and as we said somewhere in the middle of the discussion, Apple is continuing to iterate on this thing and make it better and move it toward the experience we want. So don't count it out, and definitely don't count Josh's book out. Josh, it's always great to see you. Thanks for the time.
Thanks for having me, Chuck.
We'll do it again.
All right.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Voices. We will be back with more of teaching you how to do more with your Apple tech, or just getting a better perspective on where technology is at the end of 2016 and headed into 2017. Until the next time, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes, links to subscribe, and to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, SoundCloud, the MacVoices blog, the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter, and on MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard that helps you do more with your Apple tech. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.